Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Maisy Mok. Here's a look at tonight's top stories. China's GDP jumps 4.5% in the first quarter, beating market expectations. Electric car owners may have to pay for recharges earlier than originally planned. And the death of a woman found unconscious in a public hospital toilet sparks calls for electronic monitoring. China's economy grew at its fastest pace in a year, in the first report card since the COVID-zero policy was dropped. Much of the expansion came from the retail and services sectors, while industrial production and real estate remained weak. Raymond Yeung reports.
When China abruptly lifted its zero-COVID policy last December, many expected it would be months before supply chains could fully resume operation. But just like its breakneck pace of development, the world's second-largest economy is on course for a speedy recovery. Gross domestic product expanded 4.5% between January and March from a year ago, according to the latest data from the National Bureau of Statistics. That represented the fastest growth in 1 year and exceeded forecasts of around 4%. Much of the expansion followed a strong rebound in the services sector as China's massive population gradually exited a lockdown. Accommodation and catering grew 13.6%, partly helped by the free spending holiday makers during the Lunar New Year. Retail sales shot up 5.8% as people looked for ways to utilize their disposable income, which increased 5.1% during the same period. But it was not all rosy either. While industrial production grew a modest 3%, investment by foreign enterprises was down 2.7%. Real estate investment fared even worse, declining 5.8% as the sector grappled with the liquidity crisis.
推动经济运行持续整体好转。
National Bureau of Statistics spokesman Fu Linghui, however, expects second quarter growth to be even stronger before the momentum tapers off in the second half of the year. Raymond Yeung, HKIBC.
Locally, owners may have to pay to have their electric vehicles charged earlier than the government's plan of 2025. But experts say the cost is unlikely to stop the rising trend of electric vehicle ownership. Electric vehicle chargers like this one in a government car park in Chunwan currently cost nothing to motorists. This is seen as an incentive to encourage the switch to electric vehicles. The government plans to charge drivers for the service in 2025, but according to a document to lawmakers, this may happen earlier. The government says the installation of self-service payment kiosks at Kwai Fong Car Park ties in with the progressive introduction of charging fees for electric vehicles, starting in the second half of this year at the earliest. But automotive writer Francis Fong does not think that this will be a disincentive.
Even with that cost, the electricity price for charging a electric vehicle will be very low compared to the gasoline pricing. I think the motivation for the Hong Kong people to change from a gasoline car to electric vehicle is actually very high. It's probably like 5 times more when you charge a gasoline car.
The number of newly registered electric private cars has soared from 471 in 2018 to over 19,000 last year. In 2022, electric cars accounted for 53% of all newly registered vehicles, and for the first time overtook those run on petrol or diesel. Ringo Lee, president of the Hong Kong Automobile Association, believes that people will still opt for electric vehicles, even if the government charges $1.10 for a unit of electricity. Private companies are expected to charge double. Top Beijing official Xiaobao has left Hong Kong at the end of a 6-day visit. Before his departure this afternoon, the man in charge of SAR affairs made no comment when asked about his impression of Hong Kong and whether the one country, two systems principle would remain unchanged for 50 years. His last stop in the city were Hong Kong University and 2 schools. Chief Executive John Lee said later that Xia had reminded people not to forget the harm caused during the unrest in 2019. Lee added that the government aims to complete the legislation of Article 23 this year or next year at the latest. The hospital authority has been urged to make use of the latest technology to trace the whereabouts and vital signs of patients. The call came after a woman who waited for hours in a public hospital died after being found unconscious in a toilet. Janice Low reports.
On Sunday night, a 58-year-old woman with chronic illnesses went to the Accident and Emergency Unit of Eastern Hospital after developing a fever and cough. When a preliminary checkup showed she was stable, she was told to wait for further consultation. After more than 12 hours, her name was called several times, but there was no response. Then at 4:30 p.m. yesterday, the woman was found unconscious in a toilet for the disabled and was later pronounced dead. A patients' advocacy group said patients should be fitted with wristbands with radio frequency identification or RFID technology.
We can locate the patient earlier, that we may reduce the risk of ignoring the medical condition of the patients who may be somewhere else within the premises of the A&E or within the toilet. You can easily find out. The wristband with this RFID device does not consume any energy.
Lam said a fitness tracker that can monitor patients' vital signs will also help prevent tragedies. A nurse with over a decade's experience in the public sector believes the suggestions might be feasible, but implementation will take time.
In public body organization, you can see many procedures, many rules and regulations for a new product to be implemented or to be incorporated, especially on our patients. You can see the process is very, very long.
Lau urged people accompanying vulnerable patients to be alert and summon help immediately if their condition deteriorates. Janice Low, HKIBC.
The MTR says it's doing everything to ensure that the Tongshong line extension can begin operations in 2029. But the project's director sidestepped questions on whether the construction can be further compressed.
A lot of this track work requires to be done during the limited nighttime hours of NTH. It is a short period of time. In addition, we've got to be quite prudent, and as we're undertaking the works, as we're in adjacent, say, to the Tongshong line, and we've got to make sure that we do not impact the operational service and everything else. Despite these challenges, we've made our best efforts to secure the programme. We've already undertaken a significant amount of advance works in advance of the main construction to make sure that we can deliver on time or not before. It is in our interest as MTR to deliver these projects as early as is possible, and that's certainly what we're intending to do.
Also at the Legislative Council meeting, lawmaker Michael Tian asked if the MTR can ask for extra money should the $20 billion project run into trouble. Highways Director Jimmy Chan said the one-off subsidy of $18 billion agreed in February will be final, and the railway firm must shoulder additional costs. China has accused the G7 countries of arrogance and interference after the group of Western industrialized countries criticized Beijing over its attitude towards Taiwan. G7 foreign ministers meeting in the Japanese resort of Karuizawa raised the possibility of increasing sanctions against Russia for its war on Ukraine. They also said peace and security in the Taiwan Strait is vital and took aim at China's military exercises around the island. In response, Foreign Ministry spokesman Wang Wenbin told the G7 to back off. He also urged the Western Bloc to abandon its Cold War mentality. Public schools in the U.S. city of Akron are closed today as a precaution after a grand jury voted against charging 8 police officers who fatally shot a black man last year. Jalen Walker was hit 46 times, including 5 times in the back as he tried to flee.
There's no accountability here, and we will not stand for that. We will not tolerate that, and nobody should tolerate that. It's time to stop.
Walker fired 1 shot while driving as he was chased by police. At his funeral in July last year, mourners noted that the 25-year-old had left his gun in the car when he tried to escape. The Ohio grand jury said police were legally justified in using force, but Walker's family said there was a miscarriage of justice. Strong economic data from the mainland failed to impress Hong Kong investors, and the Hang Seng Index ended 0.6% lower. Shares of Anta Sports slumped 7.4% in its worst sell-off in 6 months. The mainland's top sportswear maker sought an almost $12 billion placement at a discount of 8.8% from yesterday's closing price. Chipmaker SMIC was down 3.9% as production of semiconductors fell by nearly 15% in the first quarter. HSBC lost 1% after U.S. investment bank JP Morgan downgraded the lender's rating on capital returns. Now let's take a look at the markets. The Hang Seng Index closed down 131 points. To the top 10 active stocks, Anta Sports was down $8.10. Tencent was down $5.60. Ping An Insurance was up 80 cents. China Mobile was down 10 cents. To the forex trading against the Hong Kong dollar, euro is at 8.6, pound is at 9.7. And over to the UK market, it was up 11 points. On to the weather now. It will be cloudy with a few showers tomorrow. Temperatures will range between 24 and 29 degrees. Frequent showers and squally thunderstorms in the following couple of days. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That's our main news for Tuesday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Maisy Mok. Thanks for watching. Good night.